Good morning, everybody. Um, Sorry I missed yesterday. The only reason I missed because I wanted to rest. I was just beat. I was tired. I just wanted to just have some downtime. It didn't turn out the way I wanted it. I still had stuff I had to do, but um, mentally and bodily just was like low battery. So the night before, I said, I'm just going to take the day off. And did that. So I feel better now. I rested. At least last night I made sure to get to bed a little bit of a regular time, and so now I feel a little more rejuvenated today. So, however, in my downtime yesterday, uh, I came across a video, and I want to preface the video because I don't want people thinking that bringing attention to this in order to have people um, think a certain way politically or anything like that. Okay. Um, I consider this a making you aware video of um, the necessity for us to stay plugged into God and not depend on governmental officials to be our light, our guide, um, our source of morality. Um, and I mean that for all aspects, both left, right, center, all of it. They are simply facilitators over the governmental structures, over the humanistic ideas, but they are not God. And because they are not, they tend to do things that don't reflect Him. And when we believe that they're all godly people and they do something that's not particularly godly, there are two things that we tend to do: either defend them or we ask, why would He? I don't think either one of those questions apply ever. People do what people do, especially when their baseline, whether they are believers or not, if their baseline of protection is worldly, expect anything from them. This is why it'll be very difficult to find people who are um, like very God centric in government work. It's very if not impossible, to find them. Why? Because just like some of the parables with seed that fall on certain grounds, things choke it out. Other things take precedence. Um, and many of us want to believe the best about some of the people that we vote for. We want to have in our mind that they have the wherewithal to separate their job from their following of God, but that's not the case. I'm sorry to let people know, but that's not the case. And I think far too many of us look to these people to have a certain Christian behavior that they will never have. It's almost incompatible with the job they have, unless, of course, they really don't care about the view of their colleagues. The problem is they do care about their colleagues. And there are certain things that the arena that they're in won't allow them to do. In fact, they could lose their position if they don't kowtow to a certain mindset in government. I know a lot of them are in there and they say they love the Lord and all that stuff, yes, but there is a separation in their mind of God and their job. And they use him on occasion, they'll talk about him on occasion. But, like, for instance, you have a transgender in parliament or in Congress or in the Senate, and they want you to address it as a man when it's a woman, or they want you to address it as a woman when it's a man. And by the decorum of the legislature, you cannot say sir. But then if you don't, you get ostracized. But if you do, you're lying. You see the problem of where we are now compared to what we think is happening in government? I understand that the child trafficking thing and all that stuff is great to talk about, and we know about it, and we would love to see an end to it. I'm not saying no. But I think we might be thinking a tad bit too highly about their motive. The baseline may not be God centric. It might just be it's a good thing to do, a nice way to think, but it's not God centric. So the video yesterday, after that preface, the video I saw yesterday um, showed me one other thing is that this particular behavior is going to become way more commonplace. Um, and I'm going to say it, but there are going to be people who you might like that will be on board with not necessarily the statements being made, but the life choice of the person, and may even make rules to their favor. The person singing is a individual that calls themselves Laura Jane Grace. I believe it might be a dude wanting to be a woman. That's where I'm pretty sure it's a guy transitioning to a female, not the other way around. Um, in fact, I'm 100% sure this is a guy that has a mental delusion thinking he can be a female. And this is performing at a rally that Bernie Sanders spoke at. Um, and you'll be hearing what they sang. I bleeped out as much as I could. Um, I honestly couldn't believe it was played and that it was anyway. I'll have you hear it, but understand that this is now going to end up being commonplace, and it's already commonplace among atheists. We know that, but and the heathens, we get that. But watch as this might become something that people already say, well, that version of God is not who I believe God to be. You've heard them say that. Or if you think that is how God is, then you don't know God. You know what I mean? That kind of, if you don't accept this lifestyle, God accepts it. If you don't accept that person, God accepts it. That's what's going to start. But it's going to stay for now on the outskirts until it starts to bleed into the church. I mean, it's already partially there. So here you go. God have a big back, cause it feels like he's me. Bar is spelled with lightning teeth. They tingle like heaven's keys. Does your God have a big back? Cause it feels like he's me. God. Now, so the sentiment of the song is obviously offensive, right? Right. Um, it is expected from someone of that type. But you always know that when people, some people won't accept something until somebody who they respect accepts it too. All right. Listen to the response.
Let me thank the University of Wisconsin Parkside for the venue. Let me thank Kinsella and Pulse LLC for the music. Laura Jane Grace for the music. Lori, Ellen, Randy, and Congressman Mark Buchan for their great remarks.
So he got to stage and thanked Laura Jane Grace for the music. Now, I have never thought of Bernie Sanders as some great sage of spirituality, but the reason I wanted to have this discussion is twofold. I believe that there is a movement of people right now that consider um, certain political stances as godly and Christian to take hold of. And I fear that we have allowed certain other things to move in on top of that and have forgotten following God as number one. Now, I'm because I'm involved in the political atmosphere too through Savage Patriots. I have noticed something that is concerning, um, but I don't think anyone's really talking about. There's only one person that I've heard talk about it, and he has a really large following, and he's probably the only one to really ever call out um, this particular switch up, and that's Mark Dice. Um, Mark has been on the forefront of pointing out the hypocrisy of podcasters who say they are Christians, devout Christians, but they let certain activity, sin type activity, slide because they know the person. In fact, they'll be content to be no, you know, involved with them. One such person is Charlie Kirk. Now, many of you might know Charlie and like Charlie. If you have an affinity for Charlie Kirk, put a one. Put one. Just type one if you're aware of who Charlie Kirk is, and if you like Charlie Kirk. Give me a number one if you like Charlie Kirk. I'll wait to see who knows Charlie Kirk and who likes Charlie Kirk before I continue. Put the one if you know him and like him. Put a two if you don't like him. Okay, so lots of you know him. Do you know Dave Rubin? If you know who Dave Rubin is, put a one in the chat as well. If you know who Dave Rubin is, I'll wait to hear that one. Now, David Rubin is another conservative podcaster um, who happens to be also gay. Now, before he was with a group called the Young Turks and left the Young Turks to be a conservative because the party that he affiliated with kind of moved away from him. On his with his words, he says he's not pro for the LGBTQ agenda, but he is part of the Rainbow Coalition because he is gay. Um, and recently, he had a adoption. Him and his husband adopted a child. Now, in the adoption of the child, all of these conservatives were congratulating him on his adoption and a wonderful family, and God bless the family, and blah, 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 including Charlie Kirk, Candace Owens, Brandon Tatum, ABL, you name it, any conservative that you can name congratulated him on his adoption of the child. And even when he got married, congratulated him on his marriage. Now, the same offense that you felt listening to that song should be the same offense you feel hearing what I just told you. But I will go out on a limb and say that the majority of us probably don't feel the same level of offense hearing what you did about these people that are okay with this particular thing versus what you heard with this person singing the song. Would I be correct? Would I be correct in assuming that you are not as offended that Charlie Kirk congratulated David Rubin as you are offended at someone singing about God in a sexual manner? Here's my question. Should you not be equally offended? And I don't mean, okay, I'm offended, but I'm more offended here. Should you not be equally offended? Now, here's the worst part of this. The one that gave you the least offense should be the most offensive to us. The one that you feel less inclined to really be like really super duper offended by, that's the one that should really offend you because they claim the name of God. They claim the name of God. The other one, at least they did not claim the name of God. They blatantly are against God, so you should expect that. The other people say they are of God and still accept something that's not of God. So that should be the more egregious offense than the other one. For the sake of those, since we're early, it's only 17 minutes in. So for the sake of those that just came in, I'm going to have you um, hear the song again. So we have a nice, robust conversation to have, okay? God have a big fat, because it feels like he's me. R is filled with lightning teeth. They tingle like heaven's keys. Does your God have a big fat, because it feels like he's me? God. That is the song played at a Bernie Sanders rally and hailed by Bernie Sanders as an awesome thing to have and to do. Um, the thing about this whole issue, okay, um, is I think that we have gotten to a place. Hear me out. We've gotten to a place where we're offended at the world's behavior when we should expect it, and we're uncomfortable with the church's behavior, but not offended. I hope I phrased that properly. Um, we have come to a place where we are less inclined, and if we do call out the believer, Christian, whatever, we are seen as someone that's hateful. We're hateful of our own, but we're not. We're not hateful because we should be doing this from the house first. But I think we've been suckered into this idea that this world that we're in, we can change it. We can't change it. We're not here to change the world. I hope we get rid of that idea. Okay. We are not on earth to change the world. We cannot change the world. The world and all its things will go away. But somehow we've been lied to convinced that we are here to save or change the world. I want to make something abundantly clear to you that Christ already offered a way for those in the world to be saved. And if they don't want it, the world is not going to be saved if you're not going to take up the one that's saving. And you can't just, with your good morality line, say, I'm going to be the one to make everyone come around. It doesn't work like that. Like at all. It doesn't work like that. I just don't get that if we are if we're supposed to be the kind of people that say we are separate, stand apart, then why are we constantly trying to be one with, agree with, be in line with? Why are we trying to be like that with worldly entities, expecting them to join us on our work and our journey with God when they have no baseline with God? There's no baseline with God with them. I I want to try and find a video where he shows it. Um, if I can find it, I will be happy. Um, but if I can't, just know that it is there. Um, go through his Mark Dice's platform, you'll find it. Um, Perhaps some like to think the best in people and can't fathom other human beings being so vile for no reason. But it's not for no reason, though, Eric. And listen, I'm not if I'm going after people, I'd go. The mere fact that you believe or can say for no reason tells me that a lot more of the indoctrination process has already set into many of us, our minds. You get what I mean? I'm not saying anything ill or bad about you, but listen carefully. You say being so vile for no reason. But if you are fallen, hear me out. If you're fallen and you have not turned to God, everything vile dwells within you. There is nothing beyond the pale. So it's not for any no reason. The fallen nature contains every single evil mindset and work. So it's not for no reason. There's lots of logic behind the violence that takes place in humankind. Lots of evil. And it's natural to the human condition. It's natural to it. So it isn't for no reason. It has all the reason in the world. And I think if we would just switch our way of thinking about the world and think that there are good people, there are either either God said something true or he didn't. He said no one is good, not one. So if that be the case, how did we get to the point where we start saying, well, he's a good man and he's a good this and he's a good how? How is it that we want to associate people who are, just because of their political leaning, as not as vile as someone else, but their baseline has nothing to do with God? If your baseline has nothing to do with God, like really doesn't, it has to do with their political leanings, that seem good but not God, then I can view you just as vile as the other person singing that song. Really. You just haven't manifested this much vile behavior yet, but left long enough on that pathway without turning to God, it's inevitable. It is inevitable. It only take a few circumstantial things to happen to you for that to take place. I'm at this crossroads with it. Um and it's not the kind of crossroads where I don't know where to go. I'm at a crossroads kind of looking at people pick one or the other. And unaware it seems that they have a center path to stay. We don't want to stay in the center, but we need to stay in the center because that's where Christ is. There's a path that seems good to a man, and the end is destruction. We can think it's good. But we have come to a place now where it's infiltrated everything, where the human idea and sin and the flesh has now become this melting pot. It's become a melting pot. Now everything's accepted, except that you cannot say that maybe not, perhaps, it's not that big a deal. At least they're not pushing it on somebody. They're not asking it to be in the schools, and this is our new mindset. So as long as it's not in the schools, it's not as bad of a problem. I'm going to play for you the reaction that Dave Rubin had to some of the backlash over his child adoption thing, because I think it's important that we hear it.
But I know that you did receive a lot of blowback when you guys decided to do this, and from your own community, where it seems like had to be difficult to kind of navigate that while you were going through such an important part and a big part of your life. How did you kind of get through those? Walk me through some of those emotions, or how you dealt with kind of some of the criticism that was coming your way during the process.
Sure. First off, I'm glad you're asking, because I think I've only addressed this on one other show for a few minutes. So I'm happy to do it. So basically, we made the announcement. We took a picture in the studio with little placards with the dates and saying 2 kids are coming. And then suddenly the internet freaking blew up. It blew up. I'm talking, it was trending, all this stuff. And what I can tell you truly, 99% of what I saw was positive and
good. I'm glad he said that. We'll get back to him in a second. The guy interviewing him is a conservative. Now, I want you to understand something. I'm not trying to tell people that you can't be conservative and follow Christ fully. I'm not saying that. But I want people to understand that there is a push to replace God following with idea following. As long as you share a certain structure, listen, a certain structure of belief with me, certain other things you do and are, I will let slide. Even if it is completely contrary to the person I say I fully follow. It used to be that a conservative mindset was family, mom, dad, children, with God as head. Today, conservative is not allowing too much extreme stupidity. So what else can be snuck in if it's not fully extreme? Well, I'm gay, but I'm not for the indoctrination of children. You can be a conservative. I'm trans, but I'm not for the transitioning of children. Well, you can be over here too. You understand what I mean? Like there is a slow but steady conversion happening, and it's happening on both sides of the parties, because you'll see some churches now pushing abortion, LGBTQ, right? Because in their mind, their God accepts it. Okay, so now that's become a religion onto its own. Then on the other side is we'll reject all the extreme, but we will have some of the good stuff with it. And that way it's not, we're not a completely disingenuous group. We'll love you because you know what? At least you don't want it that vile. Because we don't really take the have no association with the weak works of darkness. We don't really believe that. We believe that you can get a little close to it as long as that darkness is telling you that it doesn't want its darkness to reach you. as, as long, hey, you can be in the dark, that's fine. And you, just as long as you agree with a few fundamental things that I agree with, I'll have affiliation with you. And this is how evil becomes normal. I'll let him continue though.
Love. I'm talking about from my fans, from the emails, the tweets, the Facebook messages, all of that stuff, from all of the colleagues and people on my show that I'm associated with that either publicly or privately sent lovely notes and said nice things and all of that stuff. But what also came with that was a couple people, not that I'm associated with. There were only, as far as I knew, and know, but correct me if I'm wrong, if you saw something that I didn't see, there were two people with blue checks on Twitter who really went after me. One of them was this woman, Jenna Ellis, who I had on the show once. She was a Trump lawyer. The other guy, this guy, Mark Dice, who I've never had on the show or been on his show. I've had no association with this guy whatsoever.
Now, I'm going to have you understand something, okay? We have before us a choice. Okay, we have a choice. Either we stand where God stands, or we don't stand where God stands. The offense that Mr. Rubin is feeling is coming from people that he considers conservative and should be accepting of what he's done. He feels violated even in the slightest because what he believed about conservatism doesn't apply to these people, because in his mind they might be too extreme. All I did was be gay and adopt a child. Still part of a family. He'll still have two loving parents. This is Rubin's viewpoint, not me. This is what he's thinking. So why are you upset that all I did was adopt a child that needed a home? Again, evil becomes normal when we try to find a sugar-coated way of presenting it. Okay, continue, Mr. Rubin.
They were really going off about surrogacy and gay parenting and whatever. And then the trolls get involved and just a bunch of people that say mean things. It's just part of the internet. It's part of
mean things. So let's analyze what these mean things might be. Two men should not adopt a child. In his mind, that'd be mean. How are you going to be gay and raise a child? That's mean. Two men should have no affiliations with raising a child. That would be mean. But so let me ask you, is it godly to think that two men should not be able to have a child together, adopted wise? We know they can't have a child together physically. So should we not have a problem with that? Or should we let our conservative value think that, well, hey, at least they're not transitioning them. At least they're not actively trying to make the child gay. But let me ask you this. If a child is in a home, two men that act as though they're husband and wife, what do you think the inevitable idea in that child's head is going to be? The acceptance of that lifestyle. Now, if God says it's not good, but you're raising a child to think it is, then you're a detriment to that child by God's standards. And if you call yourself a believer, you can in no way be affiliated with that thought process as good. So is it mean for us to call it out, or is it correct? And when you don't see other conservatives pointing it out, it must mean that God isn't their baseline. To me, it's very easy to pick them out. If you can come to me and try to convince me that what God said was bad is now good because the person doesn't do all of the bad things that they do, then you probably don't really understand what the good or bad really is. And you're simply just trying to normalize evil, because let's just be honest, it is evil. See, we've now associated evil with action. So unless the gay guy is actively trying to force himself on you, or the gay person is trying to actively convert you, that would be evil. If he's just being, that's not evil. it's, it's different. It's not evil just being. It's only evil if you do something. You try to convince me otherwise. But you are convincing me by convincing me to accept you as you are. That's also convincing. And it could also be coercion if you tell me I'm not a nice person if I don't accept you. That's also coercion. You know that. I hope people understand that. So you are being mean by trying to force me to accept you. And if I don't accept you, somehow I'm the bad guy.
Human reality in a modern world, something like that. So I did not think it was a big deal. What I didn't, because it's just how it is. What I didn't like about it was Forbes wrote an article about how Dave Rubin's audience turns on him. And they used a picture of me and Candace Owens. Candace had been at my house 2 or 3 days before we made the announcement, helping us pick out strollers with her husband.
Okay. Okay. But she says she's a Christian. So let me ask you a question. What in their mind is a Christian? Charlie Kirk congratulated him. Candace Owens went to his house to help him pick out a stroller. She's a Christian, right? You see where Christianity is now, the term. I'm not talking about actual Christianity, but you see what now the public idea of Christianity is: accept everything as long as you're not trying to push it on me. There is a trans conservative out there, and I forget its name now, but it's been on Candace's show before. They've had conversations with Candace. And so you understand my viewpoint here, don't you? That we have come to a place now where we have this idea that Christianity is just merely a gateway to accept every form of sin, as long as the person doing the sin says, I'm not going to force you. Let him continue.
Nobody that I'm friends with or associated with turned on me whatsoever.
And that's the problem. Now, hear me out. You're his friend. That's what you say. You're his friend. You're his friend, and you consider yourself a Christian, and as his friend, you don't find it necessary to point out to him that the lifestyle he's leading will take him straight to hell? You don't feel the need as a friend to point that out? So it must mean that your idea of Christianity does not see anything wrong with that, which in turn tells me that you're not a Christian. We got to stop using this term so flippant. I'm a Christian. That's a Christian. She's a Christian. He's a Christian. Do you know who gave that term to Christians? It wasn't people that liked them. And I said this before, that the term Christian was an insult. And not a bad insult necessarily, but it was an insult because look at them, Christians trying to be like Christ. The people that didn't agree called them out. Now we are getting offended when people use the term Christian. And now, so what we do, we try to incorporate some worldly thing into Christian to make it acceptable for people. So now you let anybody call themselves a Christian, because now a Christian can do anything, everything, be anything, do anything, as long as you say God loves everyone. So now it's no longer the people who see you acting like Christ that called you a Christian. Now it is, if you call yourself that, that's what you are. When I tell you it worked, it worked.
Did have some fans that had interesting questions related to surrogacy and talking about the role of the mother and the importance of a female role model, which, by the way, are legitimate issues. And I've subsequently done a 2-hour interview with Jordan Peterson about just that, and I'm happy to discuss that with you if you want. But I never saw my own audience never turned on me. I mean, I went on a book tour right after that. We sold out every show for 2 months. My show has had the best numbers every month since then for the last like 6 months or so. But to your point, I did see it. Yes, when I was opening Twitter, I saw a bunch of virtually all anonymous frog people saying horrible things about gay people, about surrogacy, and the rest of it. And it just kind of goes with the territory.
Again, it is mean. It is mean to point out it's a sin. Remember, he said that his audience grew afterwards. Listen to me. His audience grew. He sold out more places than ever. He's been at the top of his game since then. After announcing that he was going to adopt a child and his boyfriend. He has 2.77 million followers on YouTube alone. But this is more of a knock on the church than it is on Dave or anyone that supports him or on Candace. Because again, like I said at the beginning, I cannot hold people who are not having God as their baseline to a godly standard. I can't do it. I should not be expecting godly behavior from a godless individual. Why would I? Why would I expect somebody who has no affiliation with God behavior at all, but they claim his name, they don't know him, they have no idea what he wants, they're not even willing to follow what he wants. Why would I expect them to promote his way? I can't expect it. But they want me to accept them as though they are doing something for God. And there are many who will fall for it because why? If I fall for it, it must mean that I believe that what they're doing is godly. But did I get that from God, or did I get that because I'm a conservative? I have heard of the book. I have not yet read it. But that has already happened. I commend Mark Dice for him standing his ground with this, because, like I said, he's one of the few. But I see way more pundits that say they're Christian accepting every manner of unchristian like things. We're fine with it. If you look at the current conservative movement, and I understand that there are people going to say, well, there are Christian conservatives, and then there are just regular conservatives, and there are fiscal conservatives. Here's what I will say to them. There is one thing that you can be that will separate you from the tag of conservative every time. One thing, and that's God. Because while you can be a conservative and allow this and a conservative and allow that, you can't be a Christian and allow this and allow that. You just can't. It's not possible. It is impossible. So if by proxy you say that you are going to be a conservative, but with the conservative idea comes 15 different tributaries, I'm not a conservative. I'm a Christian. All my viewpoints hover around God. And where God takes the line, I take the line. Now, those lines may have people stepping in and saying, I agree with this, and I agree with this, and I agree with this. The line doesn't change. People might come in on spots of the line and say, I agree, I agree. But then they stray off and agree with other things on a different line. My job, if I am saying I'm a Christian, it doesn't deviate. There is no accepting of something outside of it just because other people who say they are like me accept it. I'm sorry, but not sorry at the same time. Take, for instance, this idea of abortion, okay? The logic behind abortion is that you should accept it because everybody has their own choice, and it isn't murder. The way God views it is that it's murder and it is wrong. So now you encounter a conservative who says, well, yes, it is, but sometimes it's allowable because of situation A or B. For years, you say you were a conservative, but now you are a Christian conservative. Do you accept that there are certain situations where abortion is allowable? Do you believe there's a certain allowable state for abortion? Yes or no? I will leave that question to you. Because I think, unfortunately, we have abandoned God's view of the sanctity of life for the sake of political gain. And we'll start conflating ways to make it okay. but the person was violated by their uncle, but the person was violated by their dad, but the person was violated by their brother. I hear you. I 100% hear you. In walks social Christianity and says, God wouldn't want her to suffer with a child of this kind of a violation. In walks Christianity and says, suffer the children to come to me. I knit you in your mother's womb. Which version of that, the Christian conservative or just the Christian, should we take? Is it a social issue? Is it a political issue? Or is it a moral issue that God has already decided? I understand that the catalyst for all this conversation came from a blatantly abhorrent location with the singing and the Bernie Sanders rally. But like I said, it kickstarted a whole thing in my head of how one is so offensive to our minds. But here we are, maybe some of us going along with something that's just as offensive to God, and we don't seem to care. We are technically having conversations with people about what level of abortion is okay. Do you understand how far we've come as a so-called Christian people? To where we are now trying to okay levels and time frames of abortion? We have normalized evil. Cursing God has been around for forever. But the acceptance of things that are blatantly against him in the church is becoming way more natural. Way more natural. And we don't seem to say much about it. In fact, if you do, you are a hater and you're judging. So let me leave you with this. Keep judging. Keep judging. For all that you have, for as long as you live, judge. I mean, you just judge the ever living mess out of these people. Judge away. You know why? Because the metric you're using isn't your own. The metric I'm using for judging people is not my metric, it's God's metric. You have a problem with my metric of judging you, then pick it up with the one that gave me the metric, buddy. I'm gonna judge you. Yes, yes, I'm judging you. I have 100% authority to judge the ever living daylights out of you. Because I'm judging you with a stick and a measuring tool I didn't create. It's God's tool. If you don't like the way I'm judging you, then take that up with the one that gave the tool to begin with. And I know you ain't going to do that because you don't got them kind of cojones. You're soft. You don't want to approach God. You know what will happen. So, no, we will continue to judge everyone the same. And that is against what God said. If you don't measure up, writing's on the wall, buddy. I'm not holding you to any kind of a level. God's holding you to it. I'm just pointing you to it. The guy he's talking to is an individual by the name of, let's see if I can find him here. Alec Lace. Alec Lace. I have not seen that dude before. His face looks familiar, but I don't really know him that well. but his particular platform has been around now for, let's see, how long? He's had his podcast now since 2018. Um, he's had Eric Trump on there. He's had Vivek. He's had Tulsi. He's had Jim Jordan. He's had Riley Gaines. So he's had some pretty big names on his platform before. So, like I said, conservative. But when you try to mix the two C words of conservatism and Christianity, they don't mix. They may have similar things about them, but they're not the same. Like at all. You can be one thing, and some of your values that you got from God may be reflected in the conservative idea. But you're a Christian first. And if you're not, then please, if you don't mind, stop saying God said this and God said, because obviously you don't care what God said. You're fine with what God didn't say. So don't use him. Charlie accepts it because Charlie is a kind of individual that's very book smart. I mean, the man is brilliant. I will never knock Charlie for his intellect, ever. Knows history, knows books. The man is a brain, a walking encyclopedia, if you will. When I tell you that Charlie Kirk is one of the most intellectual people on this earth today, I would not be lying. However, in the same vein as he says that he is a Christian, there are many stances that he has taken that has nothing to do with God. Plain and simple. And he will accept things that he says, hey, to each his own, that God doesn't say to each his own. Especially considering the fact that Charlie says he's a Christian. That's the biggest problem I see, is that when you say this is what you are, then at least stand your ground across the board about what God says. But he doesn't do that. Could be because of the type of religion he follows, no doubt. But let's just be honest, right? If your religion is obviously going against God, then you probably shouldn't be following that religion, huh? Just, just saying. Even the world knows how to do something nice. If it were not the case, there'd be no intrigue to the world. There would be no reason of a fight in your head about following God or following the devil. If the devil didn't have something nice to give you, if the devil didn't have a way to intrigue you with something pleasant, what would be the point? So a lot of them can say some nice stuff. They all say nice stuff. Okay, so it's nice. Is it godly? Is it godly? I understand that he is an offense to all this stuff. He is an offense. I get it. There's coming a point where we have to draw our line in the sand. A line. Let's find out here. Charlie Kirk himself claims to be an evangelical Christian. That's what he claims to be. He has become a prominent voice in advocating for the integration of Christian values into conservative political activism. I've been a Christian my whole life, basically, he says. It's been more than, it means more this year than it did last year. It means more this year than it did when I was 20, he said of his faith. It's almost a gift that grows sweeter with time. The more I read, the more I live, and the more it actually, I'm completely able to admit I am a total, absolute sinner, and I fall short of the grace of God. I'm completely able to admit I'm a total, absolute sinner, and I fall short from the grace of God. There is a great comfort in actually knowing that you're completely and totally depraved and an awful person, and knowing that you have to accept a Savior because of that. It's actually the most comforting thing in the world. His words. So it tells me that with all his reading, what he did not gain was wisdom. Charlie Kirk might be smart, intellectual. He does not have a lick of wisdom. Not an iota of wisdom. Not even a sniff of wisdom. If you are an absolute sinner, you is no informed. Can you ever be a Christian or saved if you are an absolute sinner? It's impossible. You might have been an absolute sinner, but for the grace of God, you are no longer. But if you're trying to tell me that right at this moment you are an absolute sinner, you are a dummy, and you have no idea, none, no idea what the blood of Christ has done. Last I checked, the death of Christ removed my status under the devil's control. I am no longer what I was, and I was a sinner. I may still have to deal with the flesh and its fallen nature that's linked to sin. But according to my God's words, it no longer has any dominion over me. And if it has no dominion over me, I cannot bear its name. If I'm not bearing its name, why am I associating myself with it? But as I said, intellect will never rival relationship. And when I say relationship, I mean understanding our relationship to God through Christ. If you don't get that, you won't get a lot of things. But today, evil is normal and it's accepted. It's accepted. Be more offended when someone who claims to be a Christian allows certain things around them. Please use the title that God gave you. The title gave you was child, son of God, daughter of the Most High. He does not call you by a name that's outside of his family. But we still want to associate ourselves with something that was prior to our adoption. That's like a person that's been adopted that keeps identifying themselves as a tenant of the adoption agency, but not as a part of the family that adopted them. That's how stupid it is. This is how stupid we sound when we call ourselves something like a sinner and then say, I'm saved. An adopted child no longer affiliates itself with the adoption agency or the house that had all these hundreds of kids in it that they were in. That they're not that anymore. They've changed their last name. They don't go after school back to that agency. They go to a house that their mother and father, who pulled them out of that mess to live with them in safety, they identify by that. They can tell you quite easily what life was like before, of course, but they will never tell you that's what they are now, because it's not what they are. They belong to somebody. They're not an orphan anymore. So why are you identifying as an orphan when you are a child adopted into one of the best families? Why are we doing that? And then you go around the world trying to identify with everybody who lived that life prior as though you are still that, when you're not. But because you're not like a child that went through juvie and unadopted, that's a line that you're not going to get to. But everything else, I am not. You're not anymore, though. You have been taken out of there and placed over here. Maybe start living like it. Maybe start talking like it. Maybe accept it. And if you don't want it, go back to the halfway house. Go back to the halfway house. Anyway, Savage Patriots will be on today. We'll be discussing the shutdown of the Department of Education and what that will eventually entail for each state. Now, this one you can be interested in because it's dealing with your kids if you have kids in school. So, now Bianca's doing okay. Off and on relapses, but we're trying to just adjust as we go. Yeah. Just so you know, too, we only have 12 more days of straight talk before I leave. 12 days. It's kind of countdowns really quick. We do have perfect peace, Connie. Who is the prince of it? Who is the prince of peace? It's Christ. Who is perfect? Christ. Who do we have? He is our peace. Not situational. He is. It's so much easier when you don't have to do anything. It's so good. So easy. Golly, it's so much better. So yeah, we got perfect peace. You just got to take it up. But yes, Bianca's fine. Like I said, we're still trying to finagle the waters of things. So just pray for that. Savage Patriots, 6:30 Eastern today on Rumble only. We won't be on Facebook to discuss the thing. I don't know. Corey is still sick. He's had a nasty flu that has been whipping his behind. When I say it's been whipping this dude, it's been Corey don't get sick. And even he is sick, he don't stay down. This particular thing that's got him is kicking his tailpipe. We talk every day, literally every day we talk. There are at least 2 days over the last 4 days that we didn't talk at all because he was out cold. He was just out. He was sleeping. He didn't know day from night. It was bad. So he's still recovering. So I'm going to be doing most of the recordings and stuff and putting them out. We'll be putting out videos, but live may not happen for a little bit yet. So just keep checking the channel for the videos we do drop and go from there. I took it down. I had Linda remove it. I think that it's run what course it could run. And I'm not in the business of fleecing. If that it felt like it, I'm sorry, but that's what it felt like. Um, and that's not a knock on the people that set it up. That's not what I mean. There was a point where I was like, and so I just decided to. It ran for a month, and I just said, nope, that's just shut it down. Um, so anyway, um, scrolling at the bottom, if you want to still help, you can, still there, or you can just email me for another option. That's fine too. So I'm just letting you know. I did get the money that was sent. I think it's they have like one more drop showing up soon or something like that. But yeah, I did get what was put in GoFundMe. I did. So thank you for all that helped with that. The bank is still doing the investigation. They said they kind of gave me I think it was like a half credit or something of the stuff that was taken until they figure it out. So what they're gonna do and how they're gonna finish their process, I don't know. I really don't know. So right now it's just a matter of waiting to see. Okay. Anyway, but scrolling at the bottom, you know what to do. You know who to consult about it. Talk to God. Figure it out with Him. If He says no, He says no. If He says yes, He says yes. You know, like I said, I leave that to Him, and His timing has been on point every time. So, yeah, they do, Penny. They take forever to do everything. They don't take forever to take it, but giving it back, man. Bruh. They sure love taking stuff, but man alive, they don't like giving it back. They hate giving that sucker back. They hate it. It's like pulling teeth. In any case, we'll catch up. Make sure you guys check out the songs I dropped. And again, I'm not the one singing, and there's not real people singing, but there are my lyrics that I've written years ago that I'm finally getting some, you know, I'm finally getting to hear what it would sound like if it was a song. So go check it out. Yes, I still do. Yes. That's the one scrolling at the bottom, Desiree. Yeah. Okay. Love you guys. Mean it. Have a grand rest of the day. Wisdom calls to you from the street. So please, please, please find wisdom. Peace.
Hold tight the dreams, for if dreams die, rely on yourself.